Stand up.
Hello, it is Monday, and I've got a great conversation with our friend Bill B. in D.C. Bill Boyle joins me. If you want to jump to it, it starts at 34 minutes today. But I hope you'll stay for the headlines and clip show. I hope you had a good weekend. Did you watch the Super Bowl? Did you do anything fun? Thank you very much to my friends Matt and Allison Miller, who've been longtime supporters of mine, invited me to go to the Human Rights Campaign dinner in New York City on Saturday night, which was a really fun time. Had a great time with them. A lot of great speakers, an amazing organization fighting for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and queer rights, and I really, really had a great time. Matt, thank you very, very much for inviting me and for listening and supporting the show for so long. Also, Pod Jam. Speaking of, April 9th through 12th, are you coming? It is in Vegas, April 9th through 12th. J.L. Covan will be there. The Black Guy Who Tips, Rod and Karen, will be there with their podcast. And we're going to have a whole bunch of great special guests joining us from Nevada as well, doing great stuff. And it's going to be a party. So I hope you'll get your tickets. There is a link in the show notes, at the top of the show notes, now and every day between now and April 9th. Pajam. All right, this is a daily show, and every day I give you the headlines and the best clips from the day or 24 hours or weekend in this case before, and that is what I'm doing today, so let's get to it. Can't do any of it without your support. The show is ad-free. Patreon.com/Pete Dominick right now. Or you can pay for a paid subscription on Substack. Please follow on YouTube and Substack as well. That makes a huge difference. Give a rating and review of the show, and let's see what we have for you. Top story over the weekend, I guess the Super Bowl and the halftime show, which was very controversial because it was a Puerto Rican singer who sang in Spanish and celebrated Latin America, Latin American countries, and so on. And I guess that triggered a whole bunch of people, or the right people. Our friend Kevin Richburg loved it so much, I asked him for a specific review, and he wrote, Bad Bunny unapologetically sang his overwhelmingly popular Grammy Award-winning catalog entirely in Spanish. A blatant love letter to his American home, Puerto Rico. The only English in the performance was sung by progressive icon Lady Gaga, and to finish out the trifecta of inclusivity, the second guest performer was gay icon and fellow Puerto Rican son, Ricky Martin, again singing in Spanish. Kevin writes, what really hit home, the message of the entire performance, was Bad Bunny closing his performance by saying, God bless to every country in the Western Hemisphere, calling them one by one, God blessing every country, not just America, as all those countries' flags waved alongside the American flag. Chef's kiss. Kevin Richburg with a bit of a commentary I asked him to submit. Thank you, Kevin. Perfectly said. Yes, indeed, it was a Bad Bunny concert with a football show. There was a football game. It was awful. And that's all you need to know. It just was boring, I think. I watched most of it, but then gave up in the fourth quarter when the Patriots finally scored. Some guy ran out onto the field, a streaker with no shirt on, and people were making jokes that he got more yards than the Patriots running game. Of course, there were the commercials, which I didn't really watch too much of and don't have a whole piece for you on, but I do love the reviews that other media outlets do. Enjoy them. I do love the communal experience of watching a television show or event together, including the commercials that people anticipate and the social media commentary people have. And I will say that the Lay's potato chips ad with the father handing the keys to the tractor of the potato farm to his daughter, his grown daughter, that Lay's ad made me cry. A Lay's potato chip ad brought tears to my eyes. So I feel I'm pretty embarrassed about that. I wonder which famous actor that had enough integrity to turn down one of those Super Bowl ads. It seemed like actors you knew and love all were taking the cash and selling some stupid product to the rest of us and getting paid lots and lots of money. I don't know. Is it selling out? I think probably. Here's looking at you, Adrian Brody, with his TurboTax commercial. And did you see the alternative halftime show? That got a lot of attention in terms of just criticism and embarrassment because apparently it did not get a very large audience, and Kid Rock's performance was lip-synced and off, and everybody could tell it was just low budget and embarrassing. I guess. I don't know. I didn't really pay too much attention to it, but it's just ridiculous that they even had to have an alternative. It's two Americas. Like, we don't like the mainstream Super Bowl performer. We need an alternative white one. And it was white. Outside of the Super Bowl and everything around it, there was also the Olympic Games, which got fully underway over the weekend. If you're following that and the headlines out of it in Cortina, Italy, pretty exciting if you care about such things. The frigid temperatures continue in the Northeast. Cold deaths in New York climbed to 18 as frigid winds lingered over the weekend. It is brutal here. This polar plunge persisting in the Northeast, and all kinds of low temperature records are being sent. Tons of snow remains on the ground. Much of it snowcrete, very hard, icy, tough to move. And so it's not fun, but I'm not going to complain about it because I prefer the cold over the heat myself. I'm one of those people. And more importantly, just happy to be here. And also, I'll be taking next week off. First week off in, I don't know, forever. I will be posting some kind of interviews, but I'm going to take Julia, my 18-year-old senior in high school, on her way to the University of Amsterdam, Netherlands next year. If you didn't hear, taking her to Arizona for the week. Thank you very much to our friends Mindy and Mike who are going to put us up there for a few nights. Looking forward to a little warmth and time with Julia, although it looks cold in Arizona, Mindy. What is going on out there? It's supposed to be hot and sunny for us. Let's move on. Japan's leader won in a landslide. Their new Prime Minister, Sane Takaichi, won a sweeping mandate from voters for her economic agenda and tough stances on immigration in China. And Japanese investors are giving an exuberant welcome to Takaichi's big win. So interesting about the elections there and what this means for Japan and Asia, much less us, and our relationship with them. I wonder how she'll play Trump. In other news, just read that on Thursday of last week, the U.S. struck another alleged drug boat in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2 people. The strike is at least the 35th since September, only the 2nd since the U.S. captured Nicolas Maduro, then president of Venezuela, in that military operation on January 3rd. Also, at the end of last week, the Trump administration finalized a policy that creates a new category of federal workers that could make it easier to fire high-ranking career civil servants for their perceived, quote, unwillingness to implement the president's agenda. The new rule, set to be published in the Federal Register on Friday, will affect approximately 55,000 workers, a very important and undercovered decision. A New York Times analysis says that Iran appears to have rapidly repaired several ballistic missile facilities damaged in strikes last year. It's made only limited fixes to major nuclear sites struck by Israel and the United States. The White House's use of the word obliterated last year, maybe not so much. In related news, talks held on Friday between Iranian and U.S. officials in Oman were, quote, a good start and, quote, exclusively nuclear. Iran's foreign minister told state media, adding that the two sides had agreed to continue discussions on a later date. In China, the 78-year-old pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai, long seen as one of Beijing, China's most outspoken critics, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison in Hong Kong's highest-profile national security case, capping a years-long legal battle that has drawn global condemnation. An interesting and important story about Jimmy Lai there in Hong Kong. And this just in, Minute Maid's frozen juices are soon disappearing from shelves. That's right. Pour or squeeze one out for a childhood staple, CNN writes. Coca-Cola, which owns Minute Maid, said in a statement Thursday that it's exiting the frozen can category. All right. Well, whatever. I just thought that was a funny thing to read and nostalgic. Remember those things? Who got those? Who used those? Who had those? My mom got them a few times, but I think they just sat in the freezer forever. There might still be one in there from 1986. Oh, that's an old refrigerator your parents have, Pete. Why are you doing Jim Gaffigan? They got a new one. I'm joking. Sorry. Also, Pizza Hut is closing hundreds of locations across the United States while its parent company continues the strategic review of the embattled brand. Can you believe it? Pizza Hut? What with their delicious pizza and those red cups and the salad bar and all that? Do you even have a Pizza Hut near you? We still do. In Nanuet, New York, in Rockland County. But I don't think I've ever been there. A new poll shows that across Europe, opinions about the U.S. have shifted dramatically since quid pro quo retook office somehow, with some of the most pro-U.S. countries now holding a negative view of the U.S. Surprise, surprise. Another Democrat dramatically outperformed previous results in a special election. Louisiana Democrat Chastity Verrett Martinez defeated a Republican opponent by double digits in the special election Saturday night for a state House seat in a district that Trump had won by 13 points in 2024. Martinez won 62% of the vote compared to 38% of her Republican opponent. The Atlantic magazine is reporting that the Trump administration is trying to change the messaging on their immigration enforcement, but not the reality. Apparently, at the White House, Stephen Miller is still running 10 a.m. conference calls 6 days a week to issue orders and demand updates on the metrics that matter most to him: deportations, new ICE officer deployments, and prosecutions. ICE field commanders have not been waived off the ambitious arrest quotas he set last May, and they may remain under orders to maintain staffing levels at 70% even on the weekends. So what they are saying versus what they are doing really matters a lot. And let's go to the Olympics and how that intersects with politics, because that's where I start the conversation with Bill Boyle as well. But listen to this. The vice president, J.D. Vance, may have almost cost the American figure skater Elisa Liu a gold medal at the Winter Games. It may have cost her the gold medal, actually. She didn't win it, and his motorcade in Milan delayed multiple athletes and staff who were headed to their events during the Winter Olympics. Team USA figure skater Elisa Liu was among those caught in the disruption as the athlete nearly missed her skate after the vice president's oversized convoy blocked access to the Milan skating venue because they brought so many stupid SUVs and they couldn't maneuver them around the streets. Whereas like the leader, the prime minister of Italy, Meloni, she was just walking around on her own without tremendous amounts of security. Anyway, wonder about that. She arrives only minutes to spare, the skater, rushing into her costume, reaching the ice in time for her short program. She went on to finish second behind Japan's Kaori Sakamoto. I nailed it. What? Vance and the U.S. delegation had flown into Milan earlier on multiple aircraft carrying staff, security personnel, food supplies, and vehicles. Food supplies? Dude brought food to Italy with him? I guess he doesn't trust anyone. Meanwhile, back in the U.S., the United States president was attacking American athletes, specifically skier Hunter Hess. U.S. Olympic skier Hunter Hess is a real loser. Said he doesn't represent his country in the current Winter Olympics. If that's the case, he shouldn't have tried out for the team, and it's too bad he's on it. Very hard to root for someone like this. Well, this is what Hunter Hess said, that it brings up emotions to represent the U.S. right now. I think it's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of. Just because I wear the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S. And I'll start there with the clip show as well, by the way. A couple of athletes in the Olympics speaking out. I think it's important and brave and courageous, and potentially they'll lose endorsements over it, so it matters. And that's where we start today's clip show. I gather clips for you every day. You can send me links to things you've seen or watched because I can't get it all, and I'm happy to share them if they're good, like this one from American figure skater Amber Glenn. She's the first woman to win 3 consecutive U.S. championships since 2005. She is the first openly LGBT female figure skater on Team USA, and the Texan star athlete just helped the U.S. win gold at Milan Cortina Winter Olympics, but she's now faced scary threats online after criticizing the Trump administration and saying this at the Winter Olympic Games.
Yeah, it's been a hard time for the community overall under this administration. It isn't the first time that we've had to come together as a community and try and fight for our human rights. And now especially, it's not just affecting the queer community, but many other communities. And I think that we are able to support each other in a way that we didn't have to before, and because of that, it's made us a lot stronger. I hope I can use my platform and my voice throughout these games to try and encourage people to stay strong in these hard times. I know that a lot of people say, you're just an athlete, like stick to your job, shut up about politics, but politics affect us all. It is something that I will not just be quiet about because it is something that affects us in our everyday lives. So Of course, there are things that I disagree with, but as a community, we are strong and we support each other, and brighter days are ahead of us.
Yes, I like the inspiration and hopeful message. I hate all the threats she's now getting as a result of speaking out. Here is Michaela Schifrin. She's a very respected skier. She had this to say from the Olympics.
There's a lot of hardship in the world, globally. And there's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of violence. It can be tough to reconcile that when you're also competing for medals in an Olympic event. I actually have some thoughts. I can read something that I had written, if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
So last night at the opening ceremonies, Charlize Theron, she had quoted Nelson Mandela. And I don't have the quote off the top of my mind because I'm not brilliant. Peace is not just the absence of conflict. Peace is the creation of an environment where we can all flourish, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, gender, class, caste, or any other social markers of difference. And for me, as this relates to the Olympics, I'm really hoping to show up and represent my own values of inclusivity, values of diversity and kindness and sharing, tenacity, work ethic, showing up with my team every single day, like I said before, the values that we bring and put out on the mountain and on the hill every single day. I'm hoping to represent those who have been supporting me this entire time. And I'm really thankful to be here. And my greatest hope for this Olympic Games, from a broader perspective, is that it is a beautiful show of cooperation and of competition.
Well done, Michaela Schifrin from Cortina, Italy. And now I want to move on to American politics, some of the Sunday shows and other things. Let's go to MS Now, where the anchor Alex Witt had Congressman Eric Swalwell, who's running for governor of California now. And you are going to hear a little bit of Orange Julius Caesar's voice in this clip because I wanted to share it because he's talking about his admiration for the Clintons because, of course, right? He loves creepy guys for sure. Anybody who is credibly accused of assaulting a woman, they're on his team. Anyway, I thought this was worth it because of what Swalwell had to say. So hopefully it's not too triggering.
Let's move to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation because former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton agreed to a closed-door deposition before the Oversight Committee this month, and that was after Republicans threatened to hold them in contempt of Congress. President Trump gave a somewhat surprising reply on their upcoming testimony. Let's take a listen to that.
Mr. President, today we heard that the Clintons set deposition dates to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Any reaction to that related to this?
I think it's a shame, to be honest. I always liked him. Her, yeah. Well, yeah, she's a very capable woman. She was better in debating than some of the other people, I will tell you that. She was smart woman. I hate to see it in many ways.
So did Trump's tone there, particularly about his 2016 opponent, did it surprise you? I mean, he was very flattering, admitting how smart she is. Is it because he's worried Democrats will then call him to testify?
Democrats will call him to testify. We will use the leverage we have right now to put pressure on Comer to have Donald Trump testify. Look, if you're going to run an investigation, everyone who is a part of the most notorious child sex trafficking ring ever should have to testify. Those that knew something and those that were even on the periphery. So, the Clintons are willing to come in. They're willing to do something that Donald Trump is not willing to do. But the guy who's mentioned in over 5,000 files, the most of anyone, should certainly be the first person on the list, not the one Republicans are trying to cover up, and which should also disturb everybody as we seek to find out without fear or favor who was involved. Of everybody in the world that Jeffrey Epstein met, and these files reveal that he knew a lot of powerful people, the person he called his best friend was Donald Trump.
All right, there you go. I thought that was pretty good. And I thought this was very good. At a rally in Atlanta Saturday, Senator John Ossoff gave a 30-minute speech, which has been widely received as excellent. he is seen as a real contender someday for president, but he is up for re-election now, and it leans Democrat for the first time. One of the major polling outfits says that Jon Ossoff has a pretty good chance there, and why wouldn't he? He is such a great speaker, very charismatic, very handsome, very smart, real leader, inspiring guy, I think, and here's why.
Now, you remember, we were told that MAGA was for working class Americans. You remember that? But this is a government of, by, and for the ultra-rich. It is the wealthiest cabinet ever. This is the Epstein class ruling our country. They are the elites they pretend to hate. So prices are up, jobs are going away, Medicaid and school lunches are slashed, nursing homes are getting defunded. If you're Steve Bannon and your pitch was Trump for the forgotten man and woman, how do you sell any of this? Trump was supposed to fight for the working class. Instead, he's literally closing rural clinics and hospitals to cut taxes for George Soros and Elon Musk. He was supposed to end the globalist world police foreign policy. Instead, we're doing war for oil and nation building again and threatening to conquer Greenland. He was supposed to drain the swamp. Instead, this is the most corrupt administration of all time, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
Yes, everybody knows it. Indeed. Do the voters of Georgia know it? I sure hope so. Jon Ossoff, that whole speech is worth listening to. So is this. It's from Steve Bannon, this crustacean of a barnacle, but he is here saying that there's no enthusiasm in MAGA. And I think that's a really important admission because he's telling the truth. Take it away, buddy.
You have a massive lack of enthusiasm among the base because they're sitting there going, I'm just not feeling it right now. And you have some of our best pollsters, Barris and Mitchell, are consistent. Texas 9. Now you're starting to see people say, hey, I got to take this in my own hands. We're going to do it. We're going to get motivated. This is one of the reasons we've shifted down to Texas. It's the all-important, one of the biggest primaries in the history of the country for the United States Senate. Also, guess what? On 3 March, Sharia laws on the ballot. And that is a massive issue in this state and other states that the establishment does not want to address. We're going to have to force it.
Oh, no. Sharia law is back on the ballot. Fucking paranoid, weirdo, fucking evil monster, Steve Bannon. Okay, what else do I have for you? How about this? This is Wes Moore, who got disinvited to the governor's meeting by the president. He's the only black governor, and now he's not invited to join all of the other governors, even though he's a leader of the Governors Association. I thought this was worth sharing with you. From CNN, here is Maryland Governor Wes Moore with Dana Bash.
From your perspective, why are you being excluded from this dinner?
Well, I've long learned that I'm not trying to get inside over the president's psyche. It's not a good use of my time. It's not lost to me that I'm the only black governor in this country. And I find that to be, particularly painful, considering the fact that the president is trying to exclude me from an organization that not only are my peers have asked me to help to lead, but then also a place where I know I belong in. And so I've long learned, and I've talked to the people and the children of my state, is that I'm never in a room because of someone's benevolence nor kindness. I'm not in a room because of a social experiment. I'm in the room because I belong there, and the room was incomplete until I got there.
You're saying that he's excluding you because of the color of your skin?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to the president's intent. It's not lost to me, but I can't speak to the president's intent.
All right, Wes Moore. Good stuff. Now let's go to Congressman Thomas Massie, who is also on CNN with Manu Raju. He's a Republican who's voted with Trump 91% of the time, but Trump has broken with him over the Epstein files and a couple of other things that he stayed consistent on, principally, Thomas Massie at least. And so this week, apparently, certain congressional leaders are going to get access to the unredacted Epstein files. I think that matters a lot. But here is Thomas Massie talking about all of this on CNN over the weekend.
with him, and they want 100%.
Mr. Massey, you are perhaps Trump's biggest target this primary season. He's tried to unite the party behind your opponent, Ed Galrine, and Congressman Andy Barr, a member of your delegation, has now endorsed your opponent. Trump has knocked off incumbents in the past by endorsing their challengers. How hard is it going to be for you to overcome the president and his MAGA allies in your primary?
Well, look, I vote with the president 91% of the time. The 9% of the time my party is taken up for pedophiles, bankrupting this country, or starting another war, I don't vote with them. And they want 100% compliance. That's why they're trying to take me out. It's really about keeping my colleagues in line. They're under no illusion that I will snap back into line because they're spending millions of dollars against me. It's going to be tough, but I'm going to win. I did notice that at one of his statements, the president had been saying I was polling at 6%. Now he says I'm at 9%. So I'm glad to see I've gone up 3% in his polling. The thing is, he just pulls those poll numbers out of thin air, and my polling shows that I'm winning in spite of millions of dollars being spent against me by the Epstein class, Miriam Adelson, John Paulson, and Paul Singer, who are showing up in these Epstein files. They're 3 billionaires from New York and West Palm Beach who are trying to fund this effort against me.
How about that? The Epstein class. That sounds like a pretty good argument, a pretty good talking point. And really important that we talk about this SAVE Act that Republicans have created to create more distrust in elections. So on ABC's This Week, Jonathan Karl had Senator Adam Schiff of California on to talk about it. Let's take a listen to a little bit of their conversation.
The Republicans are making a big push for the so-called SAVE Act, at least some Republicans are, that would require a proof of citizenship to be able to vote. I understand you and other Democrats oppose that. There are roughly 20 or so million voting age Americans who don't actually have the papers that would be required to show readily available. But given the Republicans have undermined confidence in elections and the integrity of elections, what about the idea of voter ID, of photo ID being required to vote? Are you in favor of that? Can there be a compromise where Democrats and Republicans put forward photo ID as a requirement for voting?
So, Jonathan, what you've just asked is essentially Republicans have created distrust in the elections by making claims of non-existent fraud in the elections. And shouldn't we use the distrust they've created in order to enact a voter suppression law, which is the SAVE Act, which would require people to have a birth certificate or a passport, documents that millions of Americans don't have. Almost half the country doesn't have a passport, and I don't know where many millions of people would even find a birth certificate. So
but I asked you
phony fraud claims.
But I was asking you a different question. Photo ID. Because as you know, let's show up. There was a recent poll. There's been a lot of polls on this. But in one recent Pew poll, 83% of adults support requiring photo ID to vote. 71% of Democrats favor requiring photo ID. Is that something that you can support? And if not, why not?
It's still going to be something, Jonathan. It's still going to be something that disenfranchises people that don't have the proper real ID, driver's license ID, that don't have the ID necessary to vote, even though they are citizens. This is another way to simply try to suppress the vote. And the last thing I think we want to do is discourage more people, more citizens from voting while they're attacking those same elections, while they're trying to do away with absentee ballot voting, while they're trying to do away with being able to register to vote through the DMV or by the mail. So it's part of the broader disenfranchisement effort. And no, I don't think that's the right direction.
The voter ID argument has really changed so many people's minds. It's a terrible argument, but it's convinced so many smart, progressive Democrats even, or at least in those polls, that you need an ID to vote. It's all about disenfranchisement. I'm glad Adam Schiff is holding the ground with the argument there. All right, moving on to the Super Bowl. I'm going to wrap up here with performance artist Ciara, perfectly explaining why Bad Bunny is the perfect halftime show performer during the Trump presidency. Take a listen to her.
Ciara, what do you think tomorrow's Super Bowl, what do you think is going to be the cultural impact after tomorrow?
It's going to be significant. I mean, the Latino influence is really big when it comes to music, the world in general. I think a lot of my fans and people are starting to know my obsession with the Latino culture. I say I'm Blexican, and on Sunday I'll be Boricua because I'm excited for just the moment. I think Bad Bunny is amazing. I think he's a perfect choice, especially considering the state of the world. Because we've always been a nation built on, being together, unity. So I think that it's going to represent so much and be so powerful for so many reasons. And so I'm excited for game day, for football and Bonito Ball, football de Americano, yo no espero. I'm super, super excited. So it's going to be fun.
I can't wait. Yo no espero. I believe that's what that means, right? Okay. And let's move on to another very respected Latino American. He is a super talented performer, comedian, actor, artist, and a great guy. I've met him. John Leguizamo. Love John Leguizamo. And he went on social media last night. At least I saw this on Threads after the Bad Bunny halftime performance. And like our friend Kevin Richburg, very moved, like many of us, very moved and happy with it. He said he was crying with pride, and he is. Listen.
Oh, man, are you as emotional as I am? To see your people out there celebrate it, it's getting to me. Boss.
Yeah, all right. John Leguizamo. Love that. And all of the rest of the joy that performance brought so many. And I know it was divisive for some, but I don't know what to tell those people anymore. I don't know how to. I'd be interested in engaging them. Send them my way. All right. Thought that was good. And of course, let's end on jokes with some laughs here on the Clip Show. Today I'm going over to Late Night with Seth Meyers on NBC. This is a little bit from his Friday night monologue.
Well, and now, if you don't mind, we are going to get to the news. The National Prayer Breakfast was held this morning in Washington, and attendees included President Trump and singer Jelly Roll. Just wish I could have been there when Trump found out it was the singer Jelly Roll. Well, this breakfast sucks. During his remarks this morning at the National Prayer Breakfast, President Trump said that he has done a lot for religion and added, quote, religion is back, now hotter than ever before. Well, he definitely has a lot more people saying, Jesus Christ. President Trump also said he was a very good student, but added, nobody would think so. Yeah, that's not a brag. I'm very smart, but you wouldn't know it from the way I act and talk and think. During his remarks this morning at the National Prayer Breakfast, President Trump said that the soldiers in Washington, D.C., quote, beat the crap out of criminals. Man, if that's the way he talks at the prayer breakfast, I can't imagine what he said at the National Violence Breakfast. President Trump also said this morning that he bombed ISIS fighters on Christmas Day. It's the worst birthday present Jesus has gotten since the frankincense. I got nervous about saying frankincense, so I said worth. President Trump also discussed the 2024 election and added, quote, I had to win. I needed it for my own ego. Whoa, sounds like someone's finally in therapy. His next speech is going to start with, I need this applause because my daddy didn't love me. President Trump held an event tonight to unveil a new website where consumers can purchase prescription drugs at a reduced cost. It's called Canada.com. That's right. President Trump unveiled his new Trump RX website and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz. Man, if you had told me 25 years ago that I could buy drugs online from a guy named Oz, I would have said, I'm doing that right now. During an Oval Office signing ceremony this week, Senator Lindsey Graham described President Trump's second term as, quote, Reagan plus. Plus what? Ambien?
All right, there you go. Seth Meyers, great jokes, love it. And now it's time to get to my guest for today. He is a longtime listener of the show, turned caller of the show, turned guest of the show. He's a member of our community, often joins us during our hangouts. You can find him in Washington, D.C., where he's a businessman. He lives with his wife and his son in the heart of Washington, D.C. He's a true D.C. insider. He's a Catholic. He's an Irishman. He's a Jersey boy. He's the son of a judge. He is a student of history and of travel and culture and all that we love whenever he joins the conversation. He's a rational, pragmatic guy. And while I don't always agree with him and many others don't either, we do appreciate his perspective on many things, all of the things that we talk about, including today, a little religion, a little culture, sports, of course, politics. I think the second half of the conversation, I really learned a lot from his perspective, things I hadn't thought of. I hope you like it. Bill B in D.C. is always great. You can find him on Blue Sky, and that's the best thing you can do. He's not here for the money, for the follows, or the attention, or the clicks, or any of that. Nope, he's not a pro commentator, but I've made him one, I think, to be fair. We always love when Bill B stops by. You can watch this on youtube.com/StandUpWithPete. Let's do it. All right, it is Sunday afternoon, and I've got one of my smartest friends, Bill B, in D.C. It's Bill Boyle, everybody. Very happy to have you. There are a whole bunch of things I want to talk about with you. It's the Sunday Conversation with Bill Boyle. Hi.
How are you, Pete? Go with God.
Okay.
Salam alaikum. All the rest.
I was just reading the Sermon on the Mount on ChatGPT while I was waiting for my daughter to get off the
Really?
train.
Is that on like a list of prescribed publications from MAGA?
I'm just wondering theories about where people get their general values, where they draw them from, what it means to be a good person.
Yeah.
I ask myself that question every day. I try to be a good person. I try to live with certain virtues, with a certain practice, with a certain way. And I mean, a lot of those feelings or choices that I've made are based on, thoughts and ideas from 2,000 years ago.
Well, so you and I have talked about religion. It's been a while. But, it's interesting. Those thoughts and ideas, like you don't love Christianity. But what your attitude towards life and towards the world is much more based on Christianity.
Sure. Well, based on what the Sermon on the Mount speaks to me, like Jesus is, all that speaks to me.
Yeah, like people, I think, need to learn to separate a church from a religion.
Sure.
They're two very different things, right? And what's interesting is that what predated the Catholic Church in Western civilization was the Roman idea of virtue, which meant something very different from what we think of it. And basically what virtue was power. Like if you were virtuous, it meant that you were a man in particular, who like kicked ass in the world and maintained his family name and like fought in wars and essentially exerted power. And that's a simplification for sure. But it's like people like to think that like Christianity obliterated all of these like female oriented religions and everything else. That's actually wrong. Like the Christianity is actually the religion that like said power isn't necessarily good at all. In fact, it's often really bad. Christianity was the religion that said like women are equal to men in many ways. It's funny. I mean, what we think of as liberalism with a small L is very much a product of sort of that ferment of Christianity and Judaism 2,000 years ago. It's not a Western thing at all. Actually.
Christianity, the assertion you made was Christianity didn't destroy feminism?
No, it actually created it.
Christianity created feminism.
There was not. There were not like a bunch. Yeah, there were not a bunch. No, created it in that sense in that era. It created the idea that was a thing that you could do, right? It created the foundational cultural things that led to it. Was Christianity feminist? No, but it's the philosophical foundation of it for sure.
Even modern interpretation of many Christian religions, including the one that you identify as Catholics, is very patriarchal and anti-woman, though.
I agree with that. Yes, and that's where you have to separate the church from the religion.
And now they're trying to use this SAVE Act as a backdoor into ending women's suffrage, because you would need to have a birth certificate with your last name on it to become a voter, but like some 39 million women have changed their names, and it doesn't matter because they got married. And
how likely is that going to get through? I get the feeling that that's not going anywhere.
That's a different question. The conversation should be had in every quarter of media about the SAVE Act, and I'm not fully read in on it. Sounds like you're not either, but I've been listening to and reading a lot about it and heard the arguments for it. Of course, all of which they start with the idea that illegals are flooding the ballot box, which is one of the dumber. It really does articulate or illustrate the ignorance of MAGA or anybody who subscribes to the idea that undocumented people without legal papers are voting in elections anywhere. If you believe that, I guess
you're a moron.
You're a moron. You have to be a moron because you can understand why any crime would be committed. There's a certain interest in it, but people don't come here and vote fraudulently in our elections. And there's just, even if you did believe it because you're a moron, there's no data. Not that you would care about that if you believe anything. So,
no, but like Idaho, well, you're either believe it because you're a moron or you sell it because you're a complete cynic. And you know, like Idaho just did for a couple of years.
I'm not a cynic, a con artist, like a complete con artist. You're lying. You know that's not true. You have access to all of the data. You know Mike Johnson knows that's not true.
That's right. But they see it as anything that gives them a propaganda reason to cut into women voting
or any likely
voting, et cetera, or even from their perspective, scaring people away from becoming Americans so that they'll then vote. I mean, they're looking at the long game because they know that basically white, less educated America is their base now, and rural America is their base now, and they're very cynically just pushing anything that makes it harder for everyone else to vote.
Yes, and now they're talking about.
And you see it. I mean, I'm sure you see on Facebook or everywhere else where these people just that particular lie fits so well with what a certain segment of the population wants to believe.
For sure.
And that's why it's out there. And it's along with several other real big ones. You know, that I saw an interesting thing. It turns out, and I have to check this to confirm it, but if it's not true, it's too good to not be true. But I think it is true, actually, that illegal immigrants have a lower crime rate than people who work for the Department of Homeland Security.
Then specifically
Yes.
Well, yeah, it would be
some of this who I believe is a data guy, and I believe them, and they were like, "Yeah, I'll send it to you." So I'll put this on my Blue Sky page. When I get the exact
people
link.
who come here from other countries illegally or legally and overstay are here. They're here to work. They're here to work. It's just like if you want to generalize, they're absolutely here to work and oftentimes get the dollar and send it back to their country where it's worth a lot more. And it becomes a huge part of the economics of some of these Central and South American countries. All right, let me ask you about a bunch of other things that are happening, Bill Boyle. It's Sunday. It's sports day. And by that, I mean the Super Bowl is tonight and the Winter Olympics have begun in Italy. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of the athletes being very outspoken, the U.S. Olympic athletes being outspoken. There's a lot to talk about in terms of the, quote, controversy around the halftime act. It's just all manufactured nonsense. I have no idea who Bad Bunny is. I just saw him at the Golden Globes doing a bit. No, the Grammys doing a bit with Trevor Noah. It was very funny. I loved it. That's about as much as I know about him. And, of course, the Olympic athletes now, some of them have now come out and criticized or given nuanced answers about what it feels like to represent America right now. And so you have thoughts about sports and politics and Super Bowl. What do you want to say?
Well, I think that what's happening across a bunch of different sports is that it's illustrating how the Trump administration is not in step with where the culture is going. The NFL is I've dealt with them a little bit. They are a very tough-minded, business-oriented group looking at where are we going to be in 20 years. And we want to be a global thing. We want football games in London. We want a Chinese league. We want, they are looking at the big picture, the long run, and they're the smartest people who have access to all kinds of demographics and economic data. And you know what they said? Super anti-immigrant president who really hates brown people in America, and we're going to have Bad Bunny, asshole, as our act.
That's right.
That is not, and we're going to Green Day as our act. That is a bunch of guys in marketing and development at the NFL who are looking at Trump having a 75% disapproval rating amongst like 18 to 29-year-olds. They're looking at how ICE has just completely turned off young people. Like the best marketing segment hates ICE. And they're making a very cold-blooded political decision. By the way, they did a really interesting thing. They didn't just put Bad Bunny and Green Day in. When Trump people bitched about it and yelled about it, they didn't even bother to reply. The NFL just went, that's what we're doing, and let it sit. That tells you they're not scared of them. That tells you that they have figured out where they think the culture in the country is going in the long run, and they're betting on that. And the NFL's turned itself into the number one sport in America over the last 40 years. They know what they're doing. I'll give you other examples, like an AE wrestling tournament which is basically WWF, but it's a slightly different league. Same kind of people watch it. It's a WWF style wrestling. It's like a blue collar thing in America. It's very much coded that way.
Yeah.
I watched it the other night, their big match in Las Vegas, and the entire crowd for 10 minutes was going, fuck ice, fuck ice, fuck ice. The whole crowd. Like they had to wait to start the match until the crowd calmed down. And when you see these Olympic athletes doing the same thing, where they're saying like, oh, by the way, no ice at the Super Bowl, by the way. That got canceled. Christine Nolan said we're going to have ice at the Super Bowl.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
To keep miscreant immigrants from getting in, they had to cancel that deployment, right? I mean, the other thing is with the Olympic athletes, where you see how they're behaving. These guys they are having their sort of high tide right now, and we'll see if it gets much higher. But the culture itself is not with them. A majority of like non-college educated white Americans are now against ICE. And again, like 60% against ICE, against their tactics, against everything else. So I think the sporting things really illustrate very clearly where things are going in the long run, unless these guys somehow launch like a coup and turn us into North Korea, which I don't think is possible. But I think that's the important thing to see in this, that the underlying, I always say culture always wins. And what we're seeing right now is Bad Bunny, and Green Day yesterday was like, by the way, we want to make sure everyone knows we think Trump can go fuck himself. Like the NFL's not telling them calm down before the show. They're letting them be as loud as they want to about how much they hate Trump. Also, you notice, Olympic Committee isn't sending anyone home.
Oh, right.
Back in the 72, where the black athlete raised his fist in the Black Power thing or I think it was 72,
68,
and he lost his medal and was sent home. I mean, that tells you pretty clearly, like, no one's doing that to these guys. They're in there saying Trump sucks, and Olympic Committee's going, okay. Right? And I think that's again, an important indicator of, like, what's going on under the surface, and that, Trump's just endless bloviating online obscures that to people who aren't paying attention.
1968, Tommy Smith, John Carlos, each raised a black gloved fist during the playing of the U.S. national anthem. And
they lost their medals and were sent home, which is not happening now.
Well, let's see. I'd like to see an Olympic skier raise their fist with.
They're literally saying, I'm embarrassed about what's going on in America.
Yeah,
that would have in 1968 led to like incredible repercussions. You're not seeing that now because it's known. I think people are very worried about where we're going, but they're really pissed off about where we are. And I think that the level of anger at how inept and how nasty and how weird this all is building up more and more. It's kind of like they finally got the billionaires, but then they lost everyone else persuadable in the culture is how it feels to me.
Yeah, it's very interesting. How are you seeing the mood of the country post Minneapolis and the pretty overt drawdown of Trump and Tom Homan there? Obviously, the murders of Alex Preddy, Renee Good. How are you seeing the mood of America, the energy of America, in terms of how this ICE or any other federal police force, whatever you want to call them, does something similar in any other city? Because I think simply they picked the wrong city. Minneapolis is very diverse, and they love their diverse. White people there love the brown and black people in Minneapolis. I'm just going to overgeneralize, but like they were out there in the streets, and they are doing stuff with their hands every day. What do you make of?
And they're still out there in the streets, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I don't think it would have mattered, honestly. Like, I think they would have been smarter to do it in a Cincinnati or to do it in a Toledo, Ohio, or a place that was basically a conservative place.
Yeah.
Because doing it and because there just wouldn't have been, at least initially, to be clear, because I think it would eventually have led to it. But at least initially, you wouldn't have had people coming out as much. There's so much civic cultural density in a place like Minneapolis that they were out in the streets like day one. I just give you an example. What's happening now is a bunch of guys in Minneapolis who own pickup trucks, like that look like work trucks, are putting Mexican flags on their trucks. These are white guys like me, but they're doing it because they know ICE will pull them over, and then they like hold up their ID and go, "Yeah, I'm Chad Nordson, fuck off."
That's the kind of tactic that is going to absolutely spread around the country too. Yeah. I love that.
Right, and that's actually what Minneapolis has done is they picked a place with lots of civic density. People are educated, smart, passionate about their local politics. And those people just created like 20 different things like that. Like, they have shown how to do it. And they've shown in particular, by the way, to go for nonviolence. There's studies out there, which I'll post for people, where it's actually getting the oppressive government to attack you in a sort of competitive authoritarian situation actually is a winning strategy if you're trying to overthrow it. As long as people can still see it and it's out there and it becomes part of the media scape. People are, and again, I mentioned before how like non-college white people are like 60% against ICE right now. And that's not because some liberal like me said, "Hey guys, their Fourth Amendment rights are being violated." It's they see a guy get grabbed on the street and executed by a bunch of cops. And they go, "Fuck that. That could be me. Look at that guy. He looks like me. He had a gun in a holster. He was legally carrying, not using, not threatening with him. They just assassinated the guy." That's why it works. That's why what Minneapolis did works.
They pulled his gun out of his holster and shot him in the back.
Yep. And I will tell you,
and
that's why Minneapolis is important. And as far as the state of the country goes, I think there's been a phase change. This was Trump's best issue. It's pretty much what got him elected. That immigration and inflation got him elected. Inflation has been eating away at the foundations of his coalition since the beginning. It hasn't gotten any better. It's getting a little worse.
And he's made it worse with his tariffs, obviously.
Tariffs and everything else, right. So what you're seeing now is that the other strength he had was immigration, and he's killed himself on that issue. Vance went to Italy and went on the stage at the Olympics and got booed viciously by people. And did you notice there was not any like counteracting outrage about that in America?
What do you mean by that? Or why?
You didn't see it even in papers that have been suborned. Even the Washington Post wasn't like, "Whoa, that's terrible." Everyone just kind of understands that these guys suck, and he's going to get.
I see what you're saying. Like in years past, in Olympics past, if an American vice president, if Al Gore had gone somewhere and he got booed, you would be more surprised. At least booed to that level, you would never be surprised necessarily. In certain times and certain exceptions.
It was almost par for the course for Vance. People were like, "Yeah, that's JD Vance. Of course they're fucking voting." Like, these guys have lost whatever magic they had. And I think that Trump, retains the hold on his party for now, but it's kind of this, it's weakening. He has no successor really. He has clearly mishandled things. 57% of Americans think the economy is getting worse. Something like only 18% of Americans think it's going to get better if you're in the middle class. And like 62% of Americans think it's going to get better if you're rich. Like, all of the oligarchic charges have been proven. And it's just going to, it's setting up a wave election is what it's doing.
It's setting up a wave election. I want to ask you about that because some reputable organization who I think you support said that the U.S. Senate is for the first time in a very long time in play for Democrats. Correct. And that surprised me. It is what we're hearing, and based on all these special elections that have taken place over the past year, so also seen, is that Democrats are winning in places they've never won, in places that no one expected them to win, and in spite of the cheating tactics, this gerrymandering, likely to still win, and now even the Senate is in play. It's a long way away, but just to hear that analysis right now is pretty shocking. And Trump's worst fear is that he'll be impeached. And he will be impeached, I think it might be fair to say.
I don't really buy that. I think the impeach thing is bullshit. There's not going to be 66 senators to impeach him. And
right. He won't get, it won't keep, right. But he'll be impeached in the House. Yeah,
but it doesn't do anything unless it throws him out of office.
He doesn't like it, though.
Impeachment is just whatever. It's a ticket. It's a speeding ticket at this point. He's talking about impeachment because that fires up his base, he hopes. What he's really worried about, and I'll give you a perfect example. The House Democrats just tried to get the Congress to sue the president because he's clearly violating the law over the Epstein files. He's obviously violating the law. The Republican House won't do it. Once the Democrats take the House back, that suit goes forward. Trump's in court. What he's worried about is losing control, say, of judges, of being able to appoint judges, because he's not going to get any of the wackadoodles he got before. Right. If Democrats are, frankly, if the Senate's 50-50 and Vance is the deciding vote, Lisa Murkowski is going to be their cinema for the next 2 years. She's going to say, no, you're got to some Looney Tune frothing at his mouth fool, being appointed to the federal bench. I just won't go for it. So even 50-50 in the Senate is very bad for them.
Judges,
because now
they'll be, so that's a point about judges. The other point is about the House will be, and potentially the Senate would be in control of committees. Yep. And so they would be in control of investigations. So you would see what you saw in the second 2 years of Trump 1, him being investigated for all the crimes.
And you would see them saying, okay, we're going to hold people in contempt of the House. We're gonna basically send a sheriff to arrest people. Like, take his goddamn name off the Kennedy Center. That's illegal. They're gonna be hitting him on all of these things that he's getting away with because the current Congress just doesn't enforce its own powers. Once you have a House that starts to enforce its own powers, he's in a very different place, and he's going to be locked up.
All right, so valid concerns. This seems to be the trajectory. Democrats winning everywhere. But let me ask you about the Epstein files and how far we are into this and how much farther we have to go. And also, somebody emailed me, maybe it was Ronnie, and said, I'd like to know Bill Boyle's view on this, and asked that you listen to Jared Yates Sexton and his podcast. A lot of people are talking about the relationship between Epstein, connections between Epstein and the Israelis, and Epstein and Putin and the Russians. And it would make sense that either country would be in their interest to, be able to conduct and control a major scaled up honeypot scheme where you get a guy to get all the other guys to come in and you film them. And then you got compromise, you got blackmail. It's a pretty good plan, and it's pretty low risk in a way. What are your thoughts about the Epstein file as it plays out domestically for Trump and Republicans, looking at Thomas Massie and others just absolutely ridiculing the guy that they voted for all the time, voted with? Yeah. And what do you make of these the connections, on the record connections between Jeffrey Epstein, the Israelis, Jeffrey Epstein, Vladimir Putin?
So I think it's lazy, and I'll explain why. Epstein was doing what he was doing before he had any connection to Russia. Putin was doing what he was doing before he had any connection to Epstein. All of these people were doing all the things they're doing before they ran into each other. They ran into each other because there is a sort of kleptocratic culture that really took off in Russia. But people say it infected the West, but it really was around. We had our own corrupt politicians forever. All that really happened was these people were all doing the same sorts of things and wanted the same sorts of things, so they ended up connecting to each other, running into each other, really. Epstein went to Russia like 12 times on, asking for a visa, flying into Moscow, whatever. That's not what you do if you're trying to be a hidden agent of influence of Moscow, right? You don't in public go I'm going to go to Moscow. They send a guy, you have a quiet conversation in a restaurant. That's it. There's not. So people are sort of going, it's sort of like these birds flock together. So there must have been a conspiracy. You don't need some grand theory, unified theory of all this stuff. These people are all trying to do dirty, shitty things that were corrupt. And so they found other dirty, shitty, corrupt people to do them with.
Okay. I generally agree. I generally agree with this analysis of it's lazy and you're trying to connect dots and so on. But what about and you talked about mostly the Russian connection. What about the Israeli connection? Zateo, Mehdi Hassan's outfit, has a piece there that says, why is the media not touching Jeffrey Epstein's clear connection to Israel? They're instead focusing on the possibility that Epstein was a Russian asset. And he goes on to make the case. I haven't read this full article. I don't know if you're familiar with it, and we don't need to belabor it if you're not, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I've read a lot of that. And I think it's hard for people to just think about it in terms of maybe Epstein was just Epstein's asset. He wanted influence. He wanted he wanted impunity, by the way, more than anything. If you want impunity and you're doing a ton of terrible things that you think might get you busted, what do? Hey, a guy's got influence in the Israeli government. You cultivate him. He cultivates you. You do favors for him. He does favors for you. That's the template for all of these relationships. It's these corrupt people looking to protect themselves or to get something, and they all do favors for each other. And he raises money for Bill Clinton's Millennium Challenge, or whatever, and they all get into this sort of ecstasy of back scratching with each other, which is all designed to support their money and their power and everything else. And this is no different than what happens in any city. Like, the mob guys figure out who the corrupt councilman is, and none of this. I think people, and as you know, like, I pay a lot of attention to the Russians and Russian intelligence.
Yeah,
and whatever.
that's why I asked you. Yeah.
But I think that people, because I spend that much time paying attention to that sort of thing, I get very skeptical. I don't see anything here that shows like an intelligence operation. It's not an intelligence operation if you figure out that Leon Black is shagging 12-year-old girls, and as a Russian operative, I can use that to get him to do Russia a favor. Is it intelligence? Maybe to a degree, but it's very low-key stuff. This is not Tom Cruise, swinging into a vault that he can't touch the floor. And you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing sexy about this, despite how much sex is involved in all of it. It's basic corruption.
Who's Leon Black?
Isn't he the financier or banker who was tied into Epstein?
I don't recognize that name. I think you might have had his last name.
I might have.
Let me also go ahead. Were you not done there?
Leon Black was actually the former chairman of Apollo Global Management.
Is he implicated? I don't know who this person is.
Up to his eyeballs.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Were you on Epstein Island? Because people keep saying who was not on Epstein Island. That's irking me. And I saw your post at Blue Sky. Like, it's like most people weren't. Like, most people weren't. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, by the way, I've heard, this is the first time I've said this publicly, but I was, driving up and back and forth with my parents. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of other opinions and so on. And like,
I know which one you listen to already.
Well, I've heard a bunch of people saying QAnon was right. And I hate that, because what they're saying is that QAnon said that there was some kind of global elite pedophile scandal. And it was like, no one ever disputed that. No one ever disputed that, like, billionaires had done things with Jeffrey Epstein. Lots of them. Maybe it's even deeper than people thought, but it's always the same thing. And more importantly, the rest of the shit QAnon said and thought was really, really bad and really dangerous. This idea that
and scary and wrong and
scary and wrong. So anybody be like, I want to be really modest and get up the vent. QAnon had it more right. No, they didn't. Who are those people? Stop it, Bill Maher and everybody else who's doing that.
Rich people doing shitty things is the least conspiratorial thing in the world.
Yes. Right.
Like, that's just it. There's not, and that's why I recoil from the the Russian connection. Right. And I've always said this, or not always said this about Trump, but I've in the last 8 years said this about Trump, that, affinity is not conspiracy. Now, it may lead to these people doing secret deals and whatever sometimes. But when you say conspiracy, it's like, back in 1968 when Trump was 20 years old, he bought a TV from a Russian TV store, and you know what I mean? Like, that's all bullshit. It's ridiculous. Like, the truth is more sordid, more simple, and frankly, almost insultingly common in the way that people do all these terrible things. And I think that that's what people love the conspiracy theory for. It's like, well, no, these people couldn't get over like this if they weren't doing some incredibly complicated thing, because our society or our newspapers or our legal system or something would stop it. What people, I think, have never realized or don't realize is if you've got enough money, it's pretty easy to be a terrible fucking person. If you've got a lot of money, there's not a lot of things to stop you from being a terrible person.
Of course.
And a lot of people, particularly people who are super motivated by money tend to do terrible things.
Yes, Matty B, my boy, he said in the live chat, tale as old as time, wealthy people being shitty. Well, yeah, especially the super wealthy, but yeah, for sure.
I mean, going back to where we started, there's a reason the Bible says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven.
What is that reason?
Because rich people sin like crazy, right? Like it's to be the kind of person motivated to make a ton of money, that tends to lead to bad things, right? It tends to be a unnatural and ugly way to live your life.
I'm going to ask you one final question, Bill. It's about the government negotiations to keep the government open, this DHS funding. Democrats are using whatever leverage, which is very little, but increasingly that they have, to, if they want to fund the government, then DHS has to agree to a certain set of rules, which has been negotiated. People have heard about some of this, body cams, you can't wear masks, a number of other things. And I want to know what you make of the political negotiations, if you think Democrats have done a good job here, or if they should have just shut the government down again because of what ICE is doing.
I think they did exactly the right thing. I think Chuck Schumer is lacking in very, very many ways. But politically, he won the last shutdown. And people don't love to hear that, but it's true. Like, Democrats came out of that politically in a much better position than they went into it.
Wasn't a hard choice, though. I mean, like, he's got smart people around him.
I mean, I wouldn't call them Democrats. A lot of people who comment about Democrats in social media were like, oh my God, they should have held out for more, et cetera.
Yeah, no,
but they were looking at the numbers, the polling and everything else and going like, you kind of have to, we have very little, we can't expect the people who control every branch of government to give up their power to set a budget.
Right.
So we have to negotiate certain things. In this case, it's smart to just put it down to ICE and DHS. That's very smart, because what it does is it says, hey, we're the reasonable guys. We're going to let the Department of Education and Defense and whatever work. But these guys are doing this terrible shit with this particular department. And it brings all of the conversation directly at what had been Republican strength and has been turned into a weakness. You're not going to shut down the whole government for 6 months. You just aren't. So why not get it to this thing and stretch it out? And by the way, if DHS is not funded 2 weeks from now, are regular Americans going to be upset about that?
No,
they are very much not.
Of course not. That would be
the one time where a government shutdown is going to be popular.
Well, it wouldn't shut down. It would shut down the government.
It would shut down Department of Homeland Security.
It would shut down just the Department of Homeland Security.
Yep. And then the Trump administration would have to take their money that they're spending. They have some money to extend for a while, but they wouldn't be able to spend it on Minneapolis. They'd have to make sure that like Customs and Border Patrol at every airport was running. So it is a direct shot at the way ICE is operating. And by the way, one thing that I will point out gets at how this dynamic works in social media and how Democrats come in for criticism, even when they do exactly the right thing. Like 2 days before the list came out, there was this huge blow up on social media, rumors that Chuck Schumer is bending on masks. And I saw hundreds of posts. Oh, typical Chuck Schumer, typical Democrats are so weak, blah, 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 blah. Day and a half later, it comes out that's number one on the Democratic list. No masks, right? None of those people who had a meltdown about this supposedly coming off the list had anything to say about it the next day. And it gets at there's a tendency of people to just so go after Democrats, their own supporters, totally go after them. And then when it turns out they were wrong and it was some Republican agitprop they were reading, no one goes back and says, oops, sorry. The Democratic supporters are like Yankees fans. They can bat over 500 every season, play over 500 every season for 25 years. And Yankees fans are like, these guys suck. They're ruining baseball.
It's a real fun analogy. Is that yours?
It's true, though. They really like.
No, it's accurate. It's great.
Fucking satisfied. And it doesn't matter if your leadoff batter has been the best home run hitter since Babe Ruth. We didn't win the World Series right now. Fuck you. You suck.
Ah, God, I got to ask you about one more thing now. What was it?
What was our topics? We were Ukraine?
No,
Russian economy collapsing?
No, neither of those were. It was just something that just came up and then it escaped from my brain because I was dialed into your Yankee comment, and it jumped right out of my brain that I wanted to ask you in finality. But anyway, I forget what it was.
I think we can end it on the Yankees. That's a
it's a good ending.
On the world's greatest baseball team ever. I think we can end it with them.
Did you grow up a Yankees fan in Jersey?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yankees and Giants.
Yeah, that's why you identify.
Yeah, I'm not one of those fucking people who's like a Jets Yankees fan or a
that was
Mets,
me. That was
Giants
me.
Fan. Those people are Satan. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
do not disagree. I mean, I was a Jets Yankees fan, and I was a Jets fan because my dad was a Jets fan, obviously, and he was a Jets fan because of Joe Namath. I grew up in Syracuse, so did my dad. We should have been Bills fans. That would have been heartbreaking, though, too.
Yeah.
Because
so if you're like a Jets,
I'm not anymore either thing.
So that means you're both a sadist and a masochist.
No, I'm neither. No, I'm not. I'm actually a realist and an optimist, which is why I literally announced to my father. I think I might have told you this like 3 years ago. I announced to my dad, I'm like, I am denouncing the Jets. I'm no longer a Jets fan. I still like green and white, but I'm no longer a Jets fan because I can't align with any of the Woody Johnson, the what's his name, quarterback, conspiracy theorist, all that. And just the fact that I always felt like when I was around Jets fans and at Giant Stadium for Jets games that most of those men only got through the turnstile by beating up their wives. And so it's just like that was the general. I had great
Jets fans are the Eagles fans of New York, New Jersey.
Yeah, but we should have been Bills fans.
All Islanders fans too.
Buffalo is far more representative of Syracuse culture than Long Island, New Jersey is. So.
I think Buffalo is a thoroughly legit city to be a fan of.
Final thing, I've been up in Syracuse basically every other week or most of the month, and obviously it's been really cold. And it's just different there, right? Because it's always really cold. We get the most snow. It's always really cold. But the one thing I did realize, because I listen a lot more now these days, is a phrase you hear a lot from people in central New York is stay warm. It's just something we do. We say stay warm. It's a small talky thing you do when you're at the store and you're walking out, paid for something.
Yeah.
Stay warm. And I wonder where the latitudinal line is where that phrase becomes. Or maybe people say that on a very cold day in Atlanta. I don't know. I should have ended the interview.
Jesus, it's fucking freezing. It was 12 degrees last night.
Stay warm.
So I will try to stay warm. It's not easy here, but
Frozen
I've broken
tundra.
out my father's somewhere. Where is it? I found my father's Aran wool
Thank you for
cardigan sweater, which is like wearing a sheep. It's so good, and I have to find it because it's the only way to get warm in my house. So.
I found my grandfather's bearskin jacket, and I've been wearing that around.
Really? Your granddad was Grizzly, the Lebanese Grizzly Adams?
No, it was my Irish grandfather, and he killed a koala.
Wow. So it's big on you.
A little koala. That joke couldn't get better, but you made it better. He killed a koala, tricked everybody, so it's big on you. That is where we will end. You son of a bitch. Got the best of me again, you motherfucker. Thanks, everybody, for watching live. Thank you, Bill, for joining us. Follow him on Blue Sky right now to get more of his brilliance, wisdom, and mean, cruel humor. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
All right, there you go. Bill B, NDC. Go follow him on Blue Sky. Bill Boyle. Friend him on Facebook. Join us at our Thursday night hangout where he often is, and you can always reach out to him if you want through me. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com is my email. Thank you, Bumblebees, for listening all the way to the end. You are the very, very best. Keep naming yourselves, and I'll keep giving shout-outs. I got to go back to the list. A few more of you have reached out. If you listen all the way to the end of the show, you're a Bumblebee. That's it. And you don't have to do it every day. I don't know what you guys are doing. General Bumblebees, I'll shut up. It is time for John Carroll to take over, as he does every day. JohnCarroll.org. Support him. Buy his album. Buy everything he has on that website. Send him all your money. John Carroll, we love you. You're the best. And I hope you'll now go get your tickets for Pod Jam. Pod Jam 3, Vegas, April 9 through 12.
I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. cut down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. See the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't in sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change would begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.